Getting up close and intimate. Totally not taboo with Tracy. Celebrating sexual positivity both in and outside the bedroom.
And welcome to another episode of Totally Not Taboo with Tracy. This is where we talk about everything that is taboo around sex and sexuality. So I ask you again to join us with an open mind and just be ready to take in whatever is said and sift whatever feels good for you, leave behind what doesn't feel good for you, and just experience a lovely conversation. Today, I have in studio with me Ndileka, and we're going to be talking about everything that is naughty and nice. And Ndileka has a very, very exciting Instagram page, and this is how I found her. Your Instagram page is NDL
NDI underscore HOTNE.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to check out her Instagram page. So without any further ado, thank you so much, Ndileka, for joining me here.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored to sit with you and have this conversation.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
It's going to be a very spicy conversation. And so hold on to your seats. Ndileka, please will you tell our listeners, our audience, what it is, who you are, and how you traveled this journey to do what you do.
Yeah.
So go for it.
I'm Ndileka, and I'm a certified sex and intimacy coach. And I offer the service through sexual education, sexual health education, and intimacy coaching. I help individuals and couples to help them reach their sexual potential and also unpack their own sexuality. So how I started on this journey was from a personal experience for myself. But I randomly stumbled upon it. I was sitting in a bridal shower, my friend's bridal shower, and there was a lady who was selling sex toys to us. And I remember just sitting there, and she was just going through the toys, but she wasn't captivating us. I think she was losing us as she was, going through her presentation. And I remember saying to my friends, I can do this better. And my friends, knowing the type of person I am, because I'm expressive, I'm comfortable talking about, anything under the sun. They were like, actually, you can. And I remember just like the following day, just Googling online and just like looking for ways on how to, get into the business of doing what she was doing. And then I signed up with a brand and I started selling sex toys. So the brand was all about women empowerment. So they had private parties for women where obviously you go and you showcase the products and you teach them about the products. And I started doing that. And after like a few parties that I did and meeting different kinds of, women and groups of women, there was one common thread in the parties, and it was the kind of conversations we were having, and the kind of questions they were asking me was about sex, relationships, intimacy, and their own bodies. And I quickly realized that yes, sex toys are great, but there's a deeper need and a deeper lack of information and knowledge, and that's where the passion started. And I was like, I feel like I am, or I can be, the voice for these women and give them information and equip them with as much information as possible so that they can empower themselves and make informed decisions in their lives about their sex and sexuality and relationships. So like you'd find someone asking about their own vagina and they didn't know where the clitoris is, or what the whole anatomy is called, or the genital area is called. And, we take that information for granted because we think it's common knowledge, but it's actually not. So that's where the passion grew. And that was actually a chance for me to go into self exploration for myself for sexuality, and I empowered myself. I went to take courses about sexual health, and I did a course at the Indiana University, and I also did counseling courses because I realized that I'm dealing with people, so I needed to know how to handle people. I did research, and through the research, it gave me an opportunity to also grow sexually for myself and explore other things and other avenues. And yeah, and I then started the page about, I think, in 2017, towards the end of the year. And I honestly didn't know what I was doing actually online because I was just like, okay, what am I trying to do? And how am I going to get through, to people in a manner that they can relate to? And I mean, I followed international pages and I looked at different ways and how Americans were doing it, but they're a little more advanced than we are as a country, because we're still a little conservative. And that's when I started creating a brand around how I communicate, sex and sexuality and about relationships. And that's why my page exists, and it's as loud and expressive and
sure.
in your face as it is. Nothing is sealed. Everything is talked about, from different sex positions to how to perform certain things, how to explore certain things, polyamorous relationships, polygamy, monogamy, so I look at everything under the sun, under the umbrella of sexuality, and people related to it quickly. And I do get a lot of feedback from everyone. People are still a little conservative because they don't engage on the posts, because they feel like people are seeing what they're writing. So I get a lot of private messages, people asking me personal questions, and then we engage in that manner. But it's been such a beautiful journey, and it's still growing, and there's still more to do. And I hope to reach a lot more people than I have now. Yeah.
Fantastic. So there's so much in what you've given in an introduction, so many questions I have. So going back to that party, and you sitting there and thinking to yourself, I can do a much better job. What kind of attachment did you have, or connection to your own sexuality did you have at that stage?
So I've always been an expressive person and in touch and comfortable in my own sexuality. I've been comfortable talking about sex with anyone who's, comfortable to talk about it. So I think at that point I had already used some sex toys, personally. So I was just, in that moment, I was thinking, there has to be a way to reach out to people, or to the ladies in the room, in such a way that it communicates intimacy and sensuality, and also reflects back to who they are. So that was the thing for me. I was just like, she's not connecting with women the way I think, women relate to sex.
Yes.
It wasn't just about the toys. So at that time, in that point in time, I was like, there's something missing.
Right.
A connection to how we women relate to sex.
Got it. Yeah. Because when you're doing this work, you have to be walking the talk.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's not authentic.
Yeah. That's
absolutely
true. That's true.
For sure.
That's true.
So the other question that I had for you was, through this whole process of you learning the work and exploring all the different avenues that there were, that there are to sexual health, touching people's lives and influencing them in so many ways, there's a richness to that, right? And in my practice, I tend to find that there is a difference between black women and white women, um, there's a there's a subtle difference, but yet I also find that women are women. Um, I also find that the younger black women are wanting more. They want more excitement. They want foreplay. They want toys. They just want more than what the previous generation have had before. Is your are your followers more black, more white? What's the demographic?
Obviously more black,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm black, and I think a lot of women can relate to me. And you know, the wanting more is due to the fact that growing up, even for myself, there was not a lot of sexual talks in homes, even from our parents. There was not a lot of exposure to sex topics. I mean, the only sexual education we got was, about your reproductive system. You're gonna have a menstruation at this point in time, and your body changes. Boobs, and there's pregnancy if you have sex. So those are the kind of messages I think everyone got. So now there's exposure. Now there's the internet. Now people can access a lot of information. So the wanting more is just, I think, an opportunity for Black women to explore. And it's so exciting because it's something new. But it's also scary because it's something that they've never experienced before. So there's a lot of curiosity. There's a lot of okay, let me try this. What's out there? I'm excited. Let's go to the sex ball. That kind of thing. So I think it's just due to the fact that in Black homes, sex is just something that is for the bedroom. It's not talked about.
But in white homes, it's exactly the same.
Yeah.
There's no difference there.
Yeah.
And I hear the same story with my Black clients as well. The difference is that there's a hunger among young Black girls and even my older couples who are Black. The women are saying, "I want more."
Yes.
And there's a thirst. There's an excitement. Every time I speak to a young woman, she has the smile that you have.
Yeah.
It's like it's this thirst.
Yeah.
Whereas the white women are still, they don't have that excitement around this beautiful experience of sexuality, exploring their sensuality. And that's the one thing that I am definitely noticing more and more and more.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I've had a few sessions with older and younger white women, and to my surprise, because my perception was, white women would be more receptive to, sex toys or sex conversations. But to my surprise, it almost felt like the room went quiet because it was just like, okay, it's too much information.
Yes.
We are overwhelmed right now. And you're right. For me, it was a culture shock because in my head, I'm thinking, okay, maybe there's a lot more reception on, from the other races. But it seems like it just depends on how you were raised and how you grew up and what you're exposed to. But the majority is conservative.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is about white men they love sex and want a lot of explorative sex.
Okay.
They love the porn. They love different positions. They generally love foreplay. Whereas Black men, it's not. It's a traditional thing.
Yeah.
Am I right?
You're right. But there's also a shift in Black men.
With the younger men.
Well, a little bit of both. So you get a lot of older Black men who are now dating younger Black men. black women.
Yes.
So now
Yes.
they get exposed to this curiosity that the younger women have, and then it sparks curiosity in them. So that's why I'm saying there's a shift, because there's now a lot more interest. Yes, they're stuck in, the traditional way of, okay, we have sex this way and no other way, but there is a curiosity from black men, because I get a lot of private messages from black men speaking about their challenges about sex as well, and asking me how to approach those kind of situations. So there is a shift, I think, holistically. We still have a long way to go, but I think people are more open,
yes,
to listening, to receiving
Agreed.
information, and hopefully that can change their perspective, or not. I mean, at the end of the day, everyone must do what they're comfortable with. But as long as there's information and knowledge and exposure, then someone can then decide, like, okay, I'm a prude. I'm comfortable being a prude. I know what's out there, but I decide to be this person.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I always say, like, not everything is for everyone,
Yes.
but as long as we respect
Yes.
everybody's choices, and it becomes difficult when people are judged. So now we're talking about your page.
Yes.
And I am the last thing from a prude.
Okay.
When I looked at your page, I'm like going, whoa, this is hectic, but wow, I'm so excited because it's like, I have an ex-husband, I have children, I have, thank God, parents that are still around. And it's something that spurred me on in my journey, was to be out there and explicit, but I couldn't.
Okay.
So I had to find a very diplomatic way of spreading the word, spreading the message. And what I love about you is that you are so loud. And did you get flack for that?
I mean, I do, from, especially when I started, because people were like, oh, why are you always talking about sex, like, all the time? And I think people didn't understand, what that was about. But I think, like I said before, I was just comfortable in me and my own sexuality, that I didn't think about what or how people would perceive me, or what people would say, or what my family would say, or overthought it. I was just like, this is what I'm comfortable with, and I want to create a safe space for people to feel like they can express themselves in the same way, without judgment, without shame. And it took a while, but I think to the point where it is now, people are comfortable with the kind of content that I put there. Yes, it's shocking sometimes, but they're open to, like, okay, when are you posting? When I'm not posting, it's like, okay, when are you posting again? Like, give us something. It's like they're looking forward to it. And I think maybe I'm that voice for everyone, or I'm that expression for everyone, because they can't do it themselves in their lives, just like you just mentioned, that sometimes you're just like, okay, let me play it safe, but it's because of what's happening around you. But for me, I was just like, this is how I'm going to present myself. How people perceive me has nothing to do with me, but it's a reflection on how they feel about sex and sexuality. And people project a lot. So I chose to shut the noise out.
Such courage. And I mean, there are some scenes on your page where people are simulating sex and self-pleasure. And gosh, I love that picture with the woman having cookies and milk. And I mean, there's so much content that I'm just thinking about the things that have stood out for me, with the watermelon pose. And you have gotten away with a lot of content.
I have, but it's difficult, as you know, because there's a lot of censoring around,
Yes.
explicit content. I've had a few of my posts removed by
Mm.
Instagram and Facebook. I've been blocked. I've went to the Facebook and Twitter jail, as they call it, where you can't post for like a month.
Yes.
But I mean, you push the limits where you can. I think it's just also now you try to find creative ways of not making it obvious, because then the Facebook and Twitter picks it up that
Mm.
nudity, or you're promoting sex or whatnot. So it's a challenge finding content. It's a challenge putting it out there. But I always push myself and see how can I be creative about it. That's why I would use the cookies, or just like visuals, or fruits. I use a lot of fruits as well, just to like depict what I want to, the message to say to people. Yeah.
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 And what I also love about your content is that it's shocking, yet it's appealing, or it makes it something that your followers can it's like it's taboo, so taboo, yet it makes it relatable to people, even if they're afraid of self-pleasure.
Yeah.
It's something that they can connect with, especially if they're following you.
Yeah.
If they're not following you, it's because it's like, oh, no, this is too much
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
But if they're following you and they want to explore themselves
Yeah.
through self-pleasure,
Yeah.
or they want to read your content or whatever it is, then it makes it more relatable
Yeah.
to them,
Yeah.
because it's visual.
Yes.
And there's such a experiential feel. I think that's the word I'm looking for, an
Okay.
experiential
Yeah.
feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right. And that was important for me to, because there's also a thin line between, you're just being dirty and, over sexualizing everything. But I wanted to make it clean, um, so that people can also talk about it when they're with each other, even if the post is out there or explicit. But the content, or the what you call it, the messaging around it or behind it makes sense, and it's like, okay, I can actually relate to this. Yes, the visual, I get what she was trying to say, but this is what she actually means.
Well, there's nothing like a controversial topic to get people talking.
Yeah.
And that's why we engage, that's why we do what we do.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
We want to get conversation going.
Yes.
We want to educate. We want to put it out there to the public.
Yes.
And what's also struck me as you were speaking is that, isn't it ridiculously crazy that on Twitter, for example, there are no holds barred on watching a hijacking, using guns, a murder, but we cannot watch pleasure taking place or nudity. So this is, in my opinion, how sick media is, media censorship is. And instead of being able to observe sexual pleasure, which is what we are really essentially on this earth for, I mean, sex is good. Sex makes us feel good. If it's done in the right way, with the right intentions, it just makes us feel good. But they're prepared to censor all the ugly sides of life. And that is just so sad.
Yeah, it is. But I think it's because they want to use our bodies in a sexualized way. But if we use it for educational purposes, then it's a problem. I mean, the censorship of the nipples, something as simple as that on the woman's body. But the male body, there's topless pictures all over. but the nipples are not hidden. But
Mm.
once you post a picture of a woman and the nipples are out, your picture gets taken down because it's inappropriate. So yeah, I think we are where we are because of media as well, and the
Mm.
messages or the messaging that they feed to us about sex. Sex sells, and it's a
Yes.
form of exchange.
Mm.
Sexy body with alcohol or lipstick and cigarettes.
Mm.
But
Cars.
cars, it sells everything.
Yes.
However, when we just want to talk about vaginas and penises, then it's an issue, which
Yeah.
does not make sense. It
Yeah.
does not make sense.
Crazy stuff.
Yeah.
So we are talking about all things naughty and
Yes.
nice. And that definitely does relate to your post. It's naughty, but it's nice. And your followers, what is the majority? Who are the majority? Men, women?
So there's about 70% women and 25% men.
That's interesting
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. And
Very
age
interesting.
groups from 18 all the way to 65. So there's a variety of different,
Very interesting.
groups of people. Yeah.
So how far would you say your reach is? And when I say how far, do you do group educational presentations, workshops?
Yeah, so I do group presentations. I do, like I said, one-on-one sessions, individuals or couples. I'm about to start workshops.
Mm.
Um, you know, the challenging thing for me
Mm.
is, and I mean, there's other people who do workshops and stuff, but my main focus is to get information out there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying also not to put, when you put a cost factor,
Yes.
then immediately you're, you're putting a red tape for other people who can't afford it. So I'm always looking for ways to reach people and just educate people in ways that is easier to access the information, because once you put barriers in it, then you're defeating the purpose. So
Are you talking about financially?
financially.
Yeah.
So obviously, yes, it's time for me, and yes, I would like to make money from it, but at the end of the day, my main purpose for doing this is to help people. So I'm trying not to deviate from that.
I get it. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm a social worker, and gosh, it's been such a hard journey
Yeah.
to be able to say, to value myself
Yes.
in a monetary way,
Yeah.
because I started off in my life just wanting to help.
Yeah.
And even in this, I wish I could give away my information for free.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I'm an expert.
Yes. Yeah.
And I have studied.
Yes.
And so therefore, if I want people to value me, I have to value me.
Yes.
And therefore, my services need to be valued through payment, through an exchange of, valuing that this is information that is, it's not thumb sucked.
Yes,
it
true.
is education
Time
based.
spent, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and I get exactly what
Yeah.
you're saying.
Yeah.
And we, as born empaths or help in the helping service, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
I get you.
Yeah, I think it's we just need to find a balance, I guess. Yes, have services where people can come to you and seek your expert advice and assistance, but also then give of yourself.
Yes.
In ways that you can, obviously, just to balance the scale. So I think that's where I'm trying to like find the balance. Be like, okay, cool. Yes, I'm running. It's a business, obviously, and I want to help people. And this is how people can reach me, pay for my time. But how am I also then giving back to the community, because I understand what the challenges are, and that's where I'm kind of like at the moment. Yeah. Yeah.
I think people value you more if you charge, if you,
Yes. Yes.
if you, boundaries.
True. That's true. That's true. That's true.
We were talking earlier about your journey into this process, into this choice,
Yeah.
and being in a relationship while you were exploring this work,
Yeah.
which is difficult.
Yes.
Because, and as I relate to you, I could never have done this work and had the experience that I've had if I was in a relationship.
Yeah.
Can you comment on that?
I can. Sure. That side has been such an eye opener for me. So obviously getting into the work, like I said to you earlier, that I was married. And when I left the marriage, or my marriage ended rather, I felt voiceless. And getting into this sort of work gave me a voice, and because I wanted to empower myself, but also empower other people or other women who probably felt voiceless like I did. And that's how I got into it. And obviously along my journey, then I got into a relationship. And I met such an amazing partner who was very supportive, because he was right there from the beginning of my journey, and he understood why I wanted to do what I was doing. And I explained my vision, and I explained why I'm passionate about this. And he walked the journey with me, and it was an opportunity for the both of us to explore individually our sexuality, because he was then also learning through me. I was learning as well along the way, and together it was such a beautiful experience, because we allowed each other the space to grow, explore, and figure out, how we wanted to move around our relationship and intimacy, and also define that. So it was a beautiful transition, walking someone who was as open-minded as I was, not so much in the beginning, but who was willing to, look at things from my perspective, and put himself in that position. So you do need someone, if you do get into a relationship, who's very open-minded, who's comfortable in their own sexuality,
Right.
And who's secure and content in who they are, because a lot of challenges would be, talking to men, how men view me, because I know a lot of men sexualize me. If you look at my messages in the Facebook or Instagram, there's a lot of men who are asking if do you masturbate? Like, oh, you like sex, huh? Oh, your man is so lucky to have you, because the assumption is I can't just be talking about sex. I'm having the greatest sex, on the planet. So it needs someone who's strong, but also someone who's content and secure in who they are. Yeah.
And did he start off so open-minded?
I mean, I think generally as a human being, he was an open-minded person. But obviously for him, it was a new experience being with someone who's doing this kind of work. And for me as well, this was new for me. And I think moving from, that knowledge that this is a new experience for the both of us, we kind of allowed ourselves to, be in the moment and allow, evolution to happen to the both of us, and for us to see what the journey brings out for both of us. So he was just open, and open to learning.
Yeah, I suppose that was you had already said that it was a growing process with the two of you.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting journey indeed in terms of healing. Was there any healing that happened for you, sexual healing?
So much. Because I mean, you from a teenager, you don't know what sex is all about.
Mm,
And by the time you start having sex, you don't know what you're doing.
mm,
And for me personally, this I almost wished I had started this at a younger age, with knowing everything that I know now, so as a young woman, the view is sex is for men.
yes.
um, when you have sex, it's something that men enjoy. So there's not really much about women's pleasure. So for me, the healing part was, taking back the power
Mm,
or the responsibility of my
mm,
pleasure into my own hands.
mm,
But I also had to unpack and understand what that means. So that gave me an opportunity to explore my own body, and figure out how my body works. And unfortunately, or fortunately for me, I did it at a much later stage. But when I look back, I'm just like, man, I missed out on so much, because I didn't have any information about sex. So the healing came from just understanding me as a sexual being, and being responsible for my own pleasure.
oh,
Because
that's
even when
beautiful.
you sleep with someone right now, as I sleep with someone, I'm aware that my pleasure is not in someone else's
Oh,
hands.
love that.
So that was the healing journey for me, just like taking
Yes.
back the power of my own sexuality.
Oh, that's so
Yeah.
powerful. Absolutely. Because so the question to you is, what do we tell young girls and from what age? Because I have teenagers,
Yeah.
and you know, girls, well, actually, teenagers,
Yeah.
you cannot tell them anything.
Mm.
They think they know everything, right? And I love the way that they now come back to me as older
Yeah.
teens and into their 20s,
Mhm.
and they say, Mom knows best. I wish I would have listened to you. And I'm like, yes. Although they still don't listen
Of
to
course.
me. But that's the
Yeah.
beauty in the learning.
Yeah.
So they're going to do it anyway.
Yes.
They're not going to listen to
No.
reason.
Correct.
How do we reach them to tell them that there's a better way of doing
Yeah.
things?
So, I mean, unfortunately, you can't stop when they do it.
But
Or
it's not even about the sex. It's about, you said you wish that you would have known then what you know now.
yes, and literally, I mean, um, information about, pleasure, my own
Yes.
pleasure, and information about when to say yes to sex, and what does that look like, consent,
Yes.
all those. So, but I think it is challenging to be a parent,
Yeah.
to teenagers, but I think if you start these conversations at an earlier age, before they even get to their teenage years. But obviously, I'm not saying, talk about sex when they're like 9, 10, but their bodies are going to change. They're going to get into menstruation, and boys are going to break into the teenage bodies. You start talking about what happens sexually to a human body, and the sort of feelings they might experience, and you kind of let them know that that's normal, and at their age how they can explore it. So I would encourage to talk about masturbation to talk about masturbation at an earlier age, because that's a healthy way for teenagers to explore sex
Yeah.
and sexuality. So instead of just saying no, don't have sex, or don't do this, don't touch your body. Teach about masturbation. It's like, if you feel a particular way, you can do this. And right now it's the safest way, because you're not ready for sex, and the reasons why you're not ready for sex is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's all about encouraging conversations that are body positive. Make them feel that it's normal to feel whatever they're feeling, the confusions, how they feel when they're next to a boy, because that will happen, or next to a girl, that will happen. So in that way, at least when they're experiencing certain things, they can come back to, it's like, okay, I feel this way. What does this mean? Or I feel I'm ready to have sex. What does that look like? But if we're not having the day-to-day conversations about our bodies and what's happening, the changes that are happening in our bodies, it becomes a challenge to even for them to even come back to you and say, hey mom, I kissed a boy and I felt a particular way. Now what? And that's why maybe we as adults would get a sense of, my kids don't listen to me. But it's in the how we talk to them as well.
Correct. And I was even, my philosophy is that if young girls are self-pleasuring and they know that they have the power to bring pleasure to themselves, they're not going to be giving boys blowjobs behind the school shed, because they're going to be saying, hang on a second, what's in it for me?
Yes.
So, and I also like what you said, that if you have a sexual urge, especially boys, because they're more in touch with their penises, they hold it, they go to the toilet, they an erection is reinforced by the pants and the undies, whereas women aren't that in touch with their eroticism, at a young age, or even through their lifespan. But if they do have a sexual urge before they're ready to have sex, then encourage masturbation and sex positivity and body positivity. And that way they really get a chance to experience the orgasms before they're ready to have the sex. And then when they're ready, then it's more about the pleasure and not so much about the orgasm. Well, I mean, about the sex, pleasing your partner and so on. It's more about my pleasure. That's fantastic. I really, really do love that. And I wish that for myself, that my reach could be for young women as well as for couples. And I started this work wanting to save marriages. So that's my focus. But it's very much a dream to reach young, adolescents as well. So we've had a very interesting conversation about all things nice and naughty and nice. Where to from here?
Is to continue the work, and hoping to reach more people, hoping to grow my reach on social media, but also looking at ways, just like you, of how you can reach younger people, because I think that's where that's where we need to reach people about sex and sexuality, so that they grow into adults that we are ourselves, or we've without going through a lot of traumatic experiences. So for me personally is to find ways to reach younger people, and even on my social media I do have younger people, teenagers that have private messaged me, and they're telling their friends about me, like,
fantastic,
contact this lady, ask her questions, so if I can reach that age group, it would be amazing. Yeah.
Fantastic. In terms of, I just also had a thought in terms of religion. And the church. Do you know, or are you doing any work yourself with outreach within any churches?
So I've had invitations to churches. However, it was obviously just female based, where the congregation would be having a seminar for women, and they'd invite me to come and talk about sex. So personally, I'm not obviously reaching out to religions per se, but they do come to me, and some religions are obviously open to it. But obviously, even on the day, I have to run down on how we're gonna talk about sex. But it's mostly pleasure based,
Right.
more than anything. But I try not to obviously include beliefs.
Yes.
Or religion or religious beliefs in what I say, so that the information is not influenced by anything else, but it's just in its purest form, and everyone can just make the decision based on how or what they believe or how they feel. So I go everywhere. I go everywhere.
Have you encountered trauma in your work? Sexual trauma, abuse, assault?
I have, yeah. So I've met men and women who've experienced molestation and rape in their relationships. So it, my vision also is to have a safe space for those kind of peoples, so that we come together and we unpack the trauma.
You mentioned also that you do refer a lot.
Yes. So I work with the Couch.
Yes.
It's a psychology practice in Rivonia.
Yes.
And it's a psychology and psychiatric practice, and I'm affiliated to them. So all the clients that I coach, once I realize that they need either medical assistance in terms of psychiatry or further trauma therapy, I then refer them to the therapist there. Yeah.
It's fantastic. Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you. I mean, I've really enjoyed this conversation.
It's been good. It's been great, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's been amazing to get to know you on a personal level, and to just get your journey, and to hear about all the amazing work that you do.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Ndileka, for coming onto the show, to being with me.
Thank you for having me. It has been an honor. Yeah.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
So I hope that you've all enjoyed this episode on Totally Me with Tracy. And please tune in again for our next episode.